Hey there, Facebook Live. Welcome. Good to see you. Let me get Instagram going. Let's see. All right. As you are tuning in, first off, happy Sunday or Monday, depending on where you're tuning in from. Very excited to see you all. Let's see. Morgan, nice to see you. Mike, nice to see you. Welcome back. Now, as you're tuning in, love to know, number one, where you're tuning in from. Number two, love to know three things you're grateful for. Yasmin, nice to see you. Patty, welcome. Let's see, Abraham from Egypt, welcome. Virginia, nice to see you. Janice, hello, welcome. Now, today's topic is for the 100-day personal performance and business growth challenge. Let's see. South Florida, Lisbon, Portugal, Birmingham, UK, London, Chile. Welcome from Chile. Hey, good morning, good morning. Maryland, welcome back. Is that Canada with a K? New York, welcome. Jonathan, welcome. Australia, good morning. Brazil, welcome. And so today's topic for our 100-day personal performance and business growth challenge is really simple. It's how to change the financial position that you're in. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I've talked to about, I guess 5 different people in a whole variety of financial circumstances in the last probably 24 hours, but the cause of the circumstance is exactly the same in all of them. And I just thought about it. I said, wow, this will make a really good topic to think about. Chris from Salt Lake City, welcome. Jonathan from West Point, Georgia, welcome. This will make a really great topic, especially, either Monday morning or Sunday afternoon. Great thing to think about, great thing to filter through, and then a great topic to make some adjustments to get things going how you want them to go. And here's what's interesting. I was just reading, we're here in Austin, Texas, to have a board meeting with a group of other companies, and we're all going to evaluate each other's companies, and we're going to meet with our coach and mentor and have him evaluate ours and everyone else's. And I was reading one of the packs, and this company, for privacy reasons, I won't share what or who or anything like that, but this company is doing, let's say, $40 million a year in revenue, which is like, that's amazing. And out of all that revenue, according to the form I was just reading, there's about $1,500,000 left over at the end of the year. That's really good. But if you look at the percentage that's left over versus the total amount that's being generated, my question is, why is it so small? Why is there only 1.5 million left over when in reality there's 40 million being generated? That seems interesting to me. That's a question I would have of why only 1.5? And 1.5 million is great. But why not 2.5 million or 10 million or 11 million? Why that? And so the first question I would have for you, if you want to make an adjustment to the financial situation you're in, regardless of how much money you make, my first question is, how much is left over at the end of every month or the end of every year? And I want you to think about this because this one's important. Here, let me move this. I think this is good. I got 2 screens going on, so if I keep looking back and forth, I'm just talking about Instagram and Facebook. And so my very first question is, no matter how much you make, I don't care if you make $1 billion a year or $12,000 a year or anything in between, my very first question is, regardless of how much you make, how much is left over in profit at the end of the year for you? Now, however much is left over, my question is, why is it that number? Why is it that number? And this is something you got to think about. however much you made, it's your numbers, write it down. You don't have to put this in the comment section, but however much you made, how much is left over at the end of the year? And then the next question is, why is it that amount? Why is it that amount that's left over? Why isn't it twice as much that's left over, or 3 times as much that's left over, or 10 times as much that's left over at the end of the year? Why? So overhead, payroll, taxes, I get it. But is that the real reason why that's all that's left over? Those are expenses. And so I was talking to someone who, I won't share their financial position, but they shared it with me. They said, hey, here's the position I'm in. And based on the position that I'm in, there's nothing left over at the end of every month. As a matter of fact, I'm negative X amount of zeros at the end of every month, And I went, wow, why? And this person shared with me, well, the reason is because of my life circumstance, that's the reason I'm negative X hundreds or thousands of dollars every month. And I said, really? Is it because of your life circumstance that you're overspending based on what you're making? I don't think it's the life circumstance that's causing that. What's causing that is a decision. It's a habit. There's a habit and there's a routine. And I'm not judging anyone. I'm literally watching this happen between people who have millions and millions and millions of dollars and people who are barely making, a few $1,000s a month. And it's the same pattern that exists in both scenarios. Let's see, I spent money I don't have on things I don't need. That's part of the pattern in certain circumstances. Now, the reason why someone would do that are totally different. Some people might want to do that for the opportunity to multiply what they're doing. Some people might want to do that because it makes them feel a certain way. Some people might want to do that because, oh man, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons, and this is something to think about. Let's see, I need to make more money and save 80% of what I make. My reason for making sure 30% is left is because 30% is my giving and savings and investing. There you go. So now you start to hear reasons of why people are doing it. Maybe they need to structure more of a budget. That might be a habit, but I don't know how many of you have ever set a goal or written a budget, been excited about it, and then radically not stuck to it. and you had this, fictitious plan what you were going to do, and then reality happened. And you're like, oops, and that's what it is. It was wise to admit it, though. Yeah. And so this concept that, if you're going to adjust the financial circumstance that you're in, the very first thing is you got to ask, how much am I making? How much is left over? Why is this what's left over at the end of every month, week, year, however much time you want to use? Why is it not double? Why is it not triple? Then here's the next question. What specific habits led me to this result right here? What specific habits added up to this result? Now, if you like the result you have, give yourself a high five and say, hey, let's keep doing those habits. Those are good habits. They're working. They're getting the result we want. Now, here's what's crazy. If you don't like how much is being left over at the end of every month, then ask, what habits would I have to change starting today to actually have the amount of money left over at the end that I desire? What financial habits would you have to change today? Not tomorrow, not next week, not next Thursday. What habits would you have to change today to have the exact amount of money that you really desire left over at the end of every week, month, year, whatever time frame you're looking at? David says, some people keep increasing their income and still spend more than they make. That's right. Expenses rise to meet the income in most cases. That's right. So these are habits. These are patterns people have. And I've done this. I remember the very first month I ever made a significant amount of money. And this was probably, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I remember I worked really hard and I went out there and I had a huge month. And I made more money in a month than I used to make in a year. And then I remember at one point checking my spending, and I had lots of cash left over, but I checked my spending and I realized I spent more money in that month than I used to make in an entire year. And I went, oh my gosh, how in the world did that happen? It used to take me a year to make this much money, and now I spent it in a month. And here's what I recognize. This is the important part. That's not a good habit. I said, if I keep using that habit, it doesn't matter how much I make, I'm going to be in trouble constantly and always. I said, oh boy, that's interesting. And so what ended up happening is I said, what is the habit I need to start doing if at the end of every year, in this case, I'm going to have X amount of money left over? So how do you work your financial habits? What are the habits that work best for you? So I'm going to leave this open to people. What are the habits you need to have? And let's leave this in the comment section real quick. In order to get the results you want, what are the habits that you need to have financially? There's a real broad one. Spend less than you make. Save or invest the difference. That's a super broad one. I remember reading a book when I was younger, and it was The Richest Man in Babylon. And there was this guy named, I think it's Algameth or something, Algamesh. And he says, he's the richest man. And he says, 10% of what I make is mine to keep. And I remember it repeated that, 10% of what I make is mine to keep. 10% of what I make is mine to keep. And I remember I wasn't making a ton at that time. Like I was barely making enough to pay rent and food and all this stuff. But 10% of what I made was mine to keep. And 10% of every penny I made on the top line, not the bottom, I just started hucking it away into savings. And it took me forever to finally save $5,000 back then. Becoming conscious of your spending is another one. That's a great idea. There's an app you can use called XPENS tracker, expense tracker. And what it does, just like Mint does nowadays, if you're in the US, I think, it might do other countries too, but what it does is it tracks every penny you spend, and you have to log it. And if you do it, other people say, try living on only cash for 30 days, and you'll start to get aware. Or if you're in a business, sign every check that has to be paid. No auto debits. It has to be a signed check by you. And that way you start to question, why is that money going out? And what's the real ROI of it? And you question every dollar that goes out. So any of these little adjustments are habits that start either helping you become aware, they start helping you mentally condition yourself. So 10% of what I make is mine to keep, 30% of what I make, the mine is keep. David's saying 50% of what I make is mine to keep, but it's adjusting your numbers and having a discipline, but then reconditioning the mindset constantly. Why are you saving 50%? What are you going to do with it? And so this next piece, we've done all these steps. The next piece is, if you're going to train your brain to talk about saving the money, investing the money, then the next one is you got to ask yourself, what is worth saving it for? What is worth investing it for? You have to have a reason, a vision of what you actually want to do with the money, because money by itself isn't useful for a whole lot. It's a piece of paper. It's not worth much. Now, what you can do with the value money holds is sizable depending on how much it is. But in your brain, you have to have a plan. Why am I going to save up this amount of money? And then what am I going to do with it that's worth sticking to the plan? What am I going to do with it? What am I going to invest it in? What am I going to buy? Or who am I going to give it to? Or what am I going to save it up and do with it so that it's worth the effort, it's worth the thought, it's worth the time. Otherwise, going back to what someone said earlier, you'll always find a way to spend as much as you've made. And it's very easy to do. And you watch companies do this with hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. You watch people do this with hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, millions. People go through the same process. So that next step is you got to figure out what's the vision of what you want to do with it. Next question, why is that important to you? What does that actually mean to you? What does it mean to you? How will you feel once you've done it? And then there's a final question if you want to adjust your finances. Who is going to hold you accountable to do this? Who is going to check in with you every so often and make sure that you're not completely lying to yourself? Who's going to check in with you every so often and read your numbers and go, hey, you said this. Why is it either good or not? Why is it there or not there? Who's going to consistently check in with you to make sure that you can show them your real numbers and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what I'm doing. And they go, okay, this is the plan. This is reality. Does it match? If you're doing better, good work. If you're doing worse, what happened? And they're going to help you actually stay accountable to the plan and the vision. So hopefully this is useful for you all. This is really important because it doesn't matter if you're making $100 million a year. It doesn't matter if you have a $1 billion portfolio. It doesn't matter if you're struggling to make a few $100 a week. It's the same patterns that if you get them right, your income and earnings and savings should be always going up. If you get this wrong, it doesn't matter how much you earn or create, you're always going to be dropping off a ledge every month or every year. And it's always going to be, tense and anxiety driven and fearful and anxiousness and all this chaos. And if you just practice getting these little patterns right, then all of a sudden you can start shifting it. But really, truly, take some time. If you need to go back and rewatch this, rewatch it, answer every question, write out your plan. If you need help with it, direct message it to me and I'll see if I can help you. Hopefully I'll be able to help everyone. Just take some time to get to everybody. But have some fun with this, kick some butt, share it with a friend who needs it, and I'll see you all tomorrow.